This is a live look at the Jefferson Memorial on a Tuesday morning in our nation's capital, site of the 89th annual Baseball All-Star Game. We're here at Nationals Park. Welcome to First Thing First. It is a lovely day once again. We are so lucky. The morning after the Home Run Derby, alongside the Hall of Famer Chris Carter and Nick Wright. I'm Jenna Wolf.
It
Guys,
is great out here. Last night, this stadium was damn near levitating in the air by the end of the Home Run Derby. And today's an even nicer day. A little CC's our resident meteorologist, a little cooler today.
Yes.
A little breezier.
Home Run Derby got off to a great start last night. Most of the time, it's hard to keep that energy, but the hometown hero was able to come through. It was an amazing atmosphere.
beautiful.
Absolutely amazing.
Let's start there. You literally could not have written a better script for what happened right here in this park last night. In the Home Run Derby, hometown hero Bryce Harper struggling the first half of the season, hoping to resurrect his season in front of 50,000 strong here at Nationals Park. His dad was pitching to him. The crowd was rooting for him. And Bryce Harper delivered an epic comeback in the final round against Kyle Schwarber to win the Home Run Derby. Absolutely incredible. CC, how awesome was last night's win for a guy who really had been struggling and who really needed the energy which he fed from that crowd?
Yeah, I think it's important for fans to know what type of struggle that he is going through personally. In his contract year, you would not expect him to be batting under 220, which he is doing with his pending free agency. Probably one of the top 5 biggest names in all of baseball. You would expect him, after the disappointment of the last couple years in the postseason, the Nationals not being able to make that type of mark. This was his mark. I mean, he's been on the scene for a long time, but how's he lived up to? And Nick, I know that you follow LeBron, and LeBron was kind of a lot like Bryce Harper, Sports Illustrated cover boy at the age of 16, now being with the Nationals in the face of Major League Baseball, but not living up to the expectations we have seen LeBron James. So spectacular night for him, a guy who's having a disappointing season.
And I wonder if this will be the moment that propels him in the Nationals the rest of the season. Like, they're a team that, while right now they wouldn't be in the playoffs, it's not like they're out of the race. They're playing 500 baseball. They're 5 games back of the Phillies in their division, and that's with Harper, like you said, batting .215 on the year. You also wonder if it will propel maybe his career forward with Washington because he's a pending free agent. But that's all things down the road, which I know we're going to get to. What this was last night was storybook. It's the type of things we say, you say you couldn't script it. Well, they could script it, but it would come across as not so believable.
So set the table. Down 18-9 in the final round.
Down 18-9 with 90 seconds left. Now, he knows he has the 30-second additional time, but he looked like, to me, it looked like he was drawing dead. It looked like he had no shot, and then he hits home runs on 9 of the final 10 pitches he sees. He and his dad kind of fudged the rules a little bit because they knew they were up against the clock. They didn't wait for the ball to land anymore. Just keep going. And when I say with 90 seconds left, he didn't start hitting those home runs with 90 seconds left. His dad, after the timeout, started missing pitches, which was odd. It looked like he was throwing in breaking balls in batting practice. And then he got in a groove that would have lit any crowd up. But it's the hometown crowd. It's their guy that you said, the LeBron-type expectations. It was unbelievable. I'm sitting there watching it with buddies, and we had, of course, bets on how many home runs he was going to finish on. And the lowest number anybody had was 13. And with a minute left, we thought he wasn't even going to get to the lowest number. He ends up tying it as time expires. Then he gets the 30-second add-on and winning it. That was as good as a home run derby can be. Like, you can't have a more compelling home run derby. And I'll give Major League Baseball credit in this regard. They changed the system. The time, instead of the 10 outs, it's a far more compelling viewing experience. And it adds real tension to what you're seeing.
We talk all the time, CC, about pressure with big-time athletes, and you don't generally think of pressure when it comes to the home run derby. But here's a guy who's playing basically for a contract this year, who struggled the first half of the season, who basically came out and said, I'll play in the home run derby, the All-Star game, when it's here in our park. Everyone here is rooting for him. He's
Absolutely.
the biggest name on the roster last night, and he comes out trailing and then delivers. And if you're here in the stadium, you heard the energy. If you're watching at home, even the announcers were shocked as he kept going yard, yard, yard each time.
I mean, it was one of the things that we expected to see from Bryce Harper. You know, the guy was a phenom as a kid. We've been following his career. He hadn't had moments like that. We've seen the other players that are the faces of baseball. We've seen them have moments during the regular season, postseason. Really, baseball is about the postseason. And until Bryce is able to do that in the postseason compared to in a home run derby. Now, it was a great script for a guy having a bad season, but to say this is the highlight of his career,
well, I don't think it's. I mean, he won an MVP a few years ago. I don't think it's the highlight of his career. It's the highlight of his season so far. And we've seen home run derbies where guys were on this great upward trajectory, do great in the derby or win the derby, and then the second half of the season goes sideways. I mean, the curse of the home run derby was something people brought up.
Saw it last year.
Does it screw up your swing? Does whatever it. You wonder if this could be, and I don't want to overreact to just a moment, but you wonder if this could be the flip of that. A guy who's just scuttling along. Now, he does have 23 home runs, but it was the only thing on the year he'd been doing well was hitting home runs. If that can be the type of thing that helps turn his season around. You
know, yesterday we sat here on the show, we had Tom Verducci on, who just wrote an article about how underrated Mike Trout is. We talked about how he could walk down the street. You wouldn't know who he was if he wasn't wearing a uniform. When you look at a guy like Bryce Harper, would you say Bryce Harper right now is one of the biggest stars in baseball?
He should be the biggest star in baseball. Mike Trout can be the best player. He is the best player. But Bryce Harper, because of the cachet he had coming into Major League Baseball, because of the way he carries himself, because of the way young people gravitate towards his style, his flair, he should be the biggest star in the sport. He can be the biggest star in the sport. He has the talent and the look to be the biggest, and he carries himself like he's the biggest star in the sport. And a couple years ago, he played like the biggest star in the sport. He's had some minor injuries, and then this year, the shift has really hurt him. There are some other things that have really hurt him. But baseball needs guys like Bryce Harper. Like, Mike Trout can end up being the greatest baseball player ever. Like Mickey Mantle, our generation's Mickey Mantle, whatever. But Mike Trout is so understated. You need to have a flip side to that, a guy that's going to be overstated, but that only works when you are at the top of the sport. He has been in the past. This year, he hasn't been.
It only works when you're great, all right? And that's the pressure that Bryce, that he will be under throughout his career. It's high expectations, but will he be able to live up that? Is he the biggest star in baseball? He's one of the biggest stars. I wouldn't say he's the biggest star because he hadn't had the highlights that we are used to seeing with the biggest names in baseball.
So do you think the Nationals then, to forget what we think he might have in the second half, should the Nationals go all out to try to bring him back?
Listen, the all-out part is interesting. We saw a guy who statistically had a very similar opening 5 years of his career to Harper's opening 6 years in Giancarlo Stanton. And Stanton got a 13-year, $325 million contract that instantly became something of an albatross for the Florida Marlins. That's why Giancarlo Stanton is now a New York Yankee. I would be hesitant to give anybody in sports, anybody, I'll be honest, in life, a 9, 10, 11-year guaranteed deal. But if you're the Nationals, would you pay Bryce Harper, like Tom Verducci said yesterday, $40 million a year for 5 years? I would. I always buy in the talent. And when you have Scherzer, when you have Strasburg, when you have this market, you have the ability to compete for championships. In his 6 years in the pros, he's been to the playoffs 4 times. Now, they've been one and done in the playoffs all 4 times. Bunch of Game 5 losses in the short ALDS. But I don't think you can let a talent like Bryce Harper walk in free agency and get nothing in return.
Yeah, it becomes hard for the franchise, and especially in doing shows like this. I don't think it's right for us to put the pressure on the franchise, go all out. They have to do something that's smart for them. And like Tom said yesterday, a shorter-term deal compared to the one Juan Carlos got would be better. And also, look at all these bad deals in baseballs. These long deals in baseballs. Yeah, you sign a guy when he's in his prime, you sign him to 6 to 8 to 10 years, he's going to be outside of his prime. So a lot of those end of the years, you're going to be eating those, and I believe that's really bad for baseball.
All right, we are just getting started here on a Tuesday morning live from Nationals Park in our nation's capital. So much more coming up on First Things First. Nick Swisher will stop by. Dave Winfield, John Smoltz is going to be here, and Rob Manfred, the commissioner, all coming up on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First, live from Nationals Park. Big show this morning. Lots of important people stopping by. Our guy Nick Swisher joins us in about a half hour. He's off to the side doing push-ups. Later, Commissioner Rob Manfred will be here. Hall of Famers John Smoltz and Dave Winfield. Lots of baseball to talk about with lots of cool people to talk about it with.
I might try to make Mr. Winfield do the little hand competition CC likes to do. I think we might have a guest finally that got CC trumped on this. 6'7" Dave Winfield.
Okay. All right, we're going to talk Le'Veon Bell in a second, but first, Svi Mikhailuk keeps finding ways into our program with the lob from half-court catches.
Now, is he related to somebody on the show? Like, what the heck does this guy keep being in our highlight reel?
Listen, some of our staff really does like him. He is playing for the Lakers, so it's a relevant team now. But also, I didn't know he had. Get up, young fella. What? See?
I mean, he's 6'6". A guy 6'6" dunking the basketball is not a feat.
Okay.
Oh, okay. No problem. First things
All right,
first.
Josh Hart with a little hezzy into a spin move with a nice finish.
Another one of the young Laker core, Josh Hart. A little Lakers-Cavs game went to double OT yesterday. Josh Hart, you always got to be very careful with any summer league evaluations. But Josh Hart looks like a more refined player than I would have expected already.
And you put two NBA superstars on the court with him, I believe he's only going to get better.
And LeBron likes him. Former Arizona Wildcat Kobe Simmons with a nice sweet potato.
First of all, how many steps do you get in the NBA before you shoot this one? Watch on the pass here. Watch this. 1, 2, 3.
I think that was fine. Pivot, step and a half.
You think it was 5?
Fine. I think it's fine. Did you call that a sweet potato?
Yesterday you told me no more yams. So my new word for no one got it. We're sticking in the carbohydrate family, and okay. Well, we'll try again tomorrow. We tried today. Every day we'll come back.
Hey, why don't we do this? Why don't you?
Here we go.
Why don't you ask Nick and I about those little
terminology?
Okay, so
we can kind of bring
so
you
you
up
at
into
home,
the 21st century.
I did ask, and as generally is the case, this is what happened.
Okay, but here's what I promise you didn't happen, was we just gave you other foods that weren't yams as a way. We can discuss this more off the air. But sweet potato, I honestly, when you said it, and you said it so confidently,
I
was like, man, the new lingo has passed me by. Like a put-back dunk being called a sweet potato.
No chance I have the new
to ask
lingo.
about it on the air.
Anyway, we are basically in the outfield at Nationals Park here, site of the MLB All-Star game. It's a beautiful day. The grass is very well manicured. What kind of grass is it, C?
Green.
That's the one.
the best kind.
It's a blend you told us yesterday.
Oh, yeah, it's a hybrid. We don't want to get into it. We lost some of our viewers yesterday, but
talking about it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Chris Carter's into the grass.
Yeah,
the hybrid.
All right, it's good to know. Let's talk some NFL now. Stop me if you've heard this one before. I'm sure you have. Le'Veon Bell and the Steelers not able to get a long-term deal done before yesterday's 4 p.m. deadline. And as a result, the running back's agent said, quote, this now likely will be Le'Veon's last season as a Steeler. A disappointed Bell tweeted out the following: to all my Steeler fans, my desire always has been to retire a Steeler. Both sides worked extremely hard today to make that happen, but the NFL is a hard business at times. And to the fans that had hope, I'm sorry we let you down, but trust me, 2018 will be my best season to date. CC, I'll ask you, will the Steelers regret not signing L. Bell to a long-term deal?
I don't think they're going to regret it. I think that all along I thought that the Pittsburgh Steelers was going to franchise L. Bell at least once. They did it twice. And you look at this climate in the NFL, how much are you willing to spend for a running back? We've seen that offensive lineman costs have gone way, way up. And you have to be smart about the way you spend money. They've made some critical decisions about their football team, that being Ben Roethlisberger, their quarterback. He's been paid a nice salary for a long period of time. Last year, what they did with Antonio Brown, to me, it decided the fate of Le'Veon Bell, where they couldn't have two guys be that at the top echelon as far as wide receiver. Antonio is the highest paid, and then L. Bell almost basically trying to make twice as much as the highest paid running back. So I didn't think Pittsburgh that he was going to fit in their long-term plans because of the type of demands that he was making and how much more money this was than the second, third, and fourth highest paid running backs.
Go ahead, Jenna.
Go ahead.
Listen, I do think they're going to regret it, because what's their best case scenario for them now? Is that he has a great year? He has a great year and you lose him. Best case scenario, your best case scenario can't be he has a bad year. You need him right now. I mean, Antonio Brown just turned 30. Ben Roethlisberger is going into year 15. I don't know how much longer the window of this triumvirate, this kind of a modern day triplets, is going to last. And to me, there's been some misinformation on the reporting. Ian Rappaport tweeted out yesterday the Steelers offered him 5 years, $70 million. But that's a totally meaningless figure until you find out how much of that was guaranteed money. Like, how much of that was just on the back end of the deal, years he's never going to see. What I do know is this, that the Pittsburgh Steelers were in a position, have been in a position the last few years, that no other team in football could say. We have a consensus top 5 quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. They are yet to have taken full advantage of that as far as reaching, much less winning a Super Bowl, and now they have 1 year left of that. They have 1 year left with Le'Veon Bell on the football team. I don't think that is smart business. And when we look at the league as a whole, there has to be a correction coming with the running back market. Running back is now the second lowest paid position in football, behind only tight end. Like, you can't have the highest paid guards, centers, inside linebackers making more than the best running backs in football. There's not, like, it has swung too far in that direction.
Just because you don't like it don't mean that it's not going to continue to happen. If you look at the emphasis the NFL right now has been on the offensive line. You mentioned the tight ends being the lowest paid on the offense, but the tight ends until several years ago, they were almost obsolete. We just started seeing in the last 5 years tight ends, multiple tight end offenses, especially with New England. They have done it more than anyone else, put tight ends on the field. And then we've seen the resurgence of tight ends, getting them in mismatches in space. So we've seen the tight end come back. The running back is making a reemergence as far as a primary player. But from a dollar standpoint, when you look at the length of their career, when you look at the amount of guarantees, all right, they are not going to guarantee running backs because their career is too short, they're too apt to get hurt, and you can replace a running back with a free agent. And that's what I think the recent history of the NFL has shown offensive coordinators, that you don't have to have a high draft pick. You don't have to pay a guy in excess of $10 million to have a quality running back.
But do you think there was more to that with this Le'Veon Bell situation?
Actually, I know there was more to it. The Pittsburgh Steelers, once Le'Veon Bell got suspended for the 2016 season to start the season with the 3-game suspension, that means he's already been disciplined 2 other times, all right? In the NFL drug policy, you get fined, basically game checks, before you get suspended.
And he's been suspended twice.
Yes. So you know that he was fined at least a couple times before that. So no one has told me this. I just know the drug program. He's 1 strike away from missing a year away from football. So why would you invest those types of dollars into a guy that's 1 strike away from being away from your organization? And, Nick, I think you're wrong as far as Pittsburgh, because they've gotten 2 good years out of L. Bell, and they haven't committed the 40 or 50 million in guarantees to a running back who also has a potential long-term suspension hanging over his head.
all that, yes, is on the table, but the bottom line is the Steelers have three big parts of their offense, and it's been those three big parts, and it's been Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell, and they're going to hold on to and pay Ben Roethlisberger, and they've obviously decided to pay, Antonio Brown. So you look at the running back, and you wonder how important the running back is to this offense or to any offense if that becomes the expendable position of the three.
I also think, well, here's the thing. I think Le'Veon Bell is, you cannot evaluate him the way we evaluate most running backs. This guy's top 20 in the NFL in catches over the last 2 seasons.
I don't think Pittsburgh is evaluating him that way. They're offering him $5 million more than any running back is making. Like,
well, no. You mean the franchise tag? I mean,
even in the long-term deal, we don't know the guarantee. Say they offered him $14 million.
That's what it would have averaged out over the course of the deal.
It's $5 more million. What other position are you going to get $5 more million than the highest paid? There is no other position in the NFL that's doing that.
Correct, but there's also another position in the NFL where the best guys are all on rookie deals except for him. Like, so we got to look at the salary with the running back position a little bit differently because Zeke is on a rookie deal. Fournette, Gurley, all these guys are on rookie deals. And I understand what you're saying, but typically the other position, the best paid guys are on second contracts, so you have an idea of what the fair market value is. Like, would you agree that at some point this has to reset?
What I agree with is L. Bell overplayed his hand. And they think running backs, running backs are more valuable. And because Todd Gurley and Ezekiel Elliott, you can't guarantee they're going to get 15 to 20 million. Why would you put those types of guarantees in a running back? I believe that model right now is going around the NFL, and L. Bell misplayed his hand. He thought for sure. Remember, he said, oh, I'm not coming in unless I get 17 million. Then he dropped down 15 million. Oh, I want 14 million. He overplayed his hand.
All right, well, we will talk about this much more coming up over the course of the next 3 hours. Coming up on the other side, though, will Kawhi Leonard's opinion about the San Antonio Spurs change now that they can offer him that Supermax deal, that $219 million? We're live from Nationals Park. This is First Things First. Welcome back. It is a work day. People are getting to work. Not for us, though. We are having some fun. First things first, just outside the outfield wall in Nationals Park in our nation's capital for the 2018 MLB All-Star game. Takes place tonight at 7:30 on Fox.
I think I'm at work, though.
You feel like you're at work? I don't feel like. I feel like I'm just hanging out with you guys having fun, like every day.
No doubt. What are we doing here?
We're going viral. This is Rhys Hopkins of the Phillies, participant in last night's home run derby. 37 total home runs, but lost in the semis. After the derby, he hopped on social media and tweeted, I would like to send my condolences to all of the balls that were harmed in the making of that derby. Hashtag, oh my goodness.
He was awesome. He got it started last night, got the crowd involved. The first round, I mean, it was like, whoa, who's going to follow that? I thought that was very exciting for him to get the ball. Not a lot of people knew him. He was a big underdog heading into the home run derby, so it was exciting to see him get off to a great start.
Every round of it was compelling. The timer is great, and the head-to-head part of it, instead of just top four advance, the seeding is great. My guy Javi Baez got a bad draw, I thought. Got unlucky. He had 16 home runs, didn't even get out of the first round.
That's what happened to him?
Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
That's why he didn't win.
16 home runs was the fourth most of anybody in the first round, but he went up against a guy that had 17.
But he looked good in the warm-ups. He was wearing Roberto Clemente's jacket there in the warm-ups before he went into the batter's box. Didn't do so well in the batter's box.
He did great in the batter's box. But the jacket looked well on it.
But the guy who won was basically supposed to win last night, and he did in Bryce Harper.
And, by the way, Harper didn't have a huge round until the end. Like, he kind of warmed up, I think it was 13-13, and then the monster finish.
All right, let's talk about that with some stories to start your morning. Biggest story in town when y'all wake up. Bryce Harper, the national star, put on a show last night at the aforementioned home run derby. Epic comeback, beating Kyle Schwarber. CC, how impressed were you with Harper's performance?
Very impressed. I'll let the baseball end. We got Swish coming up. They can talk about the baseball, but I was very impressed. I love the arm sleeve. Yesterday was a difficult day for Americans, but, man, he had the Star Spangled Banner on the sleeve. Check out the wristband. Check out the socks. The headband was dope.
And he had it on the bat.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to get to that, Nick.
Oh, okay. I was just jumping in. He was Team America all the way yesterday. It was a perfect ending to what was one of the most entertaining home run derbies I've ever seen. And I thought it was kind of going to go out with a whimper. when it looked like he wasn't going to even come close to catching Schwarber, it looked like, oh, okay, you got the hometown guy with a chance to win it, and he's going to lose 18-11, and then he hits 9 of 10 to end up tying it up. It was great.
Look at that. It's fantastic. All right, here's where we are on the Manny Machado watch. According to reports, a Machado trade is very close to being done as during the All-Star break, and all signs are pointing to him going somewhere other than the New York Yankees. Nick, where do you think Machado can go where he'll most impact the playoff race in the second half of the season now?
The Los Angeles Dodgers is my answer there. They have, at shortstop, they could get better. That's the position he wants to play. They are in a very tight divisional race, only a half game up on the Diamondbacks, but also only 2 games up on the Rockies. And they're a team that could trade for him and believe he might not be a rental. They're going to have the money to keep him if they want to. I think the Dodgers are the place, the best fit for him.
Yeah, I like it. Magic Johnson, get involved. He's still involved with the Dodgers, right?
Sure.
Let's get a 2-man deal. Let's get him and Kawhi both coming to Los Angeles. One plays with the Dodgers. The other one comes on down and plays for Laker Nation. Let's get this done, Los Angeles. Everyone's going to Los Angeles. If you want to move to Los Angeles, the show's moving to Los Angeles.
No, we're not doing that.
Everybody's going to L.A. Everybody got that?
We're good.
Everybody's shaking their head no.
All right, let's move on to the NFL. Aaron Rodgers turns 35 this season, but he's not planning on hanging it up anytime soon. Rodgers said, quote, "I'd love to play till I'm 40. Get in line, Aaron Rodgers. It's a popular age to strive for if you are a quarterback in the NFL, apparently. CC, you think Rodgers can play at the high level we've seen him play for this long?
If we believe that Peyton Manning, if we believe that what we're seeing with Tom Brady, if we believe what we're seeing with Drew Brees, this guy's a better athlete than all of them. He hadn't had any serious ailments to his shoulder, throwing shoulder, or his lower extremities. So, no, nothing wrong with his knees. He loves playing in Green Bay. So when you get to that advanced age, it's how much hunger and thirst does the guy have for the game? Aaron hadn't won a championship in a long time, too. I look forward to him playing into his 40s.
Let me ask you one question about this real quick, because I think Aaron Rodgers is the most talented thrower of the football in the history of the sport. I really believe that. But you mentioned that he's a better athlete than those guys. Could that potentially work against him staying at his level as his athleticism deteriorates? Like, one of the reasons it doesn't matter, it seems, how old Tom Brady is. The guy was never a great athlete. Part of Rodgers' greatness is getting out on the move. Do you think it could work against him?
That has nothing to do with the athleticism I'm talking about. When I talk about being a good athlete, I'm talking about let's put them on a field and play 4 or 5 other sports.
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers is a better athlete. And if we were talking about his mobility, that's going to prevent him from getting hit. That's what's going to actually keep him healthier is his athleticism.
All right, and finally, Earl Thomas is ready to get his contract situation with the Seahawks resolved. Via Instagram, he requested either a contract extension or a trade, but not both. That would be too demanding. CC, what should the Seahawks do with Earl Thomas?
They got to trade him. They got to let him go because he's not going to be happy there. He's kind of given you a kind of a precursor for him not being happy there. He's not going to show up at camp. If you look at Richard Seymour, they let him go.
Richard Sherman
let him go. If you look at Cliff Averill, him deciding to retire. Cam, he's out with the neck. He can't play football anymore. This Seattle team is totally different. I believe now is the time. They're going to lose Earl one way or another. They're better off getting a draft pick for him and trying to replace him next year.
Wouldn't the time have been before the draft, though? That's my only question about this is, if you're going to lose Earl Thomas for the 2018 season, wouldn't you, I would like to think, you'd have the foresight to know this
Are you talking about the player or the organization?
For the organization.
Yeah, because of course, that would be better for them
but
as you start getting close to training camp. But the player doesn't want to be there. That's why he's continued on with his demands.
But I guess my point is, I feel like we had an idea from afar that Earl Thomas, months ago, either wanted a new contract or to be released or to be able to go somewhere else. We were talking about it during the season about him wanting to potentially go to Dallas at some point. I just think organizationally, as you're going through this iteration of the team, Sherman's moving on, as you mentioned. They knew that Cam Chancellor might not be able to play anymore. I think you would have been better off trying to do this when you could get a player that can come in and help you this season. If you trade him now, it would almost assuredly be for a draft pick, right? You're not going to trade player for player typically.
Yeah, I just think with the climate in that locker room, is he going to enhance what you're trying? Pete Carroll's trying to change that locker room. It's obviously with all the new faces. Is Earl going to help me get my message to the new players? No, he's not. So regardless of what we think about timing, man, the player, to me, it's not in his best interest to bring him into the locker room and continue on this, which is ultimately, it's going to end in a divorce anyway.
All right, let's talk some basketball now. Moving on to the NBA. Big day for Kawhi Leonard and the San Antonio Spurs. No, they didn't sign him, but now they can pay him. The Spurs can now officially offer him the 5-year, approximately $219 million supermax contract. That being said, Kawhi still reportedly wants to be traded to Los Angeles, where he would make less money. Cece, what does it say that Kawhi is willing to leave that money on the table in order to go play elsewhere?
Well, for a lot of people, it might say different things. But for Kawhi, it says that money is not his #1 motivator. He believes in his heart of hearts that in Los Angeles, he'll be a happier person that's playing basketball with the Clippers or with the Lakers. He spent most of his time in the San Diego area. He loves that area. Kawhi is not the type of person that by the external things that he's motivated. Actually, last week he went to Vegas. It was too chaotic for him. He planned on staying longer, left after one night there with some friends. So Kawhi is not the normal superstar where he's looking for the limelight, he's looking for the attention, or he's looking for those max dollars. Him and his group, they knew that this date was coming. So this is not a big day for them. It's not like it caught them by surprise. They had made up their mind long time ago that the Supermax numbers, they didn't matter in the overall picture of where Kawhi wanted to go and what he wants to do in his future.
That's where even before I started to get some of the insight that from Chris, because he's obviously very close to this situation, that to me was the biggest indicator months ago that, oh, Kawhi Leonard, for some reason or another, and there's a lot of reasons that went into it, desperately wants out of San Antonio in a way that I cannot remember a player wanting out of a city. Like, Boogie Cousins wasn't that happy in Sacramento, but they could offer him so much more money than everybody else that he, even though he wasn't that happy there, he was upset he got traded because the money, there was such a giant financial discrepancy. When Kawhi Leonard can be offered upwards of $70 million more in not only in a state with no income taxes, no state taxes, but also with a franchise that has won 5 of the last 20 NBA titles. It's not like it's like, oh, I'm going to waste my prime here. No. You actually have won a Finals MVP there. So the winning's there. Great coach, an organization that has a pedigree, and they can offer you overwhelmingly more money than anyone else can offer you, and you still desperately want out. That to me was evidence of how months ago, how frayed and broken the relationship had become.
See, let me ask you a question. We've talked a lot about Kawhi Leonard, how he's kind of an understated guy. He doesn't need the limelight. He doesn't want the limelight necessarily. So here's a guy that you wonder why you would want to go to Los Angeles. So clearly it's not to make more money, and clearly it's not because you're going to suddenly fall into stardom that you didn't have in San Antonio. Is it just about going home? Is this all about just, I want to play at home?
No, it's more than that. He's not happy with San Antonio's organization. I mean, we have just thrown all this on San Antonio like, oh, it's a great organization. But to me, from what I'm hearing, it's a lot like New England. That means that certain players are going to love it, and then certain players, it's going to rub them the wrong way. How San Antonio goes about doing things, how they police your endorsements, how they police the people you hang around with. There's a number of things that Kawhi was not happy with that he wouldn't. There's certain things they asked him to do. It's not as if he didn't want to do them, but he wanted the explanation why you want this done. And they aren't used to explaining it to their players. And as they explained it to me, they want a bunch of yes guys within their organization. And Kawhi has questioned the type of players that they're trying to pursue in free agency.
And listen, there is a separate angle to this, which is Kawhi Leonard going to be able to get to Los Angeles this offseason? And from everything that I'm hearing, those paths are quickly, I don't want to say closing, but they're shortening. Like, people need to understand this. The Lakers cannot unless Luol Deng is involved, and the Spurs are absolutely not taking Luol Deng back. The Lakers and the Spurs cannot consummate a two-team trade involving Kawhi Leonard. They just can't. They have to have a third team involved to make the salaries match. And as free agency is now winnowed down, and Brian Windhorst made this point on Zach Lowe's podcast, and he's hearing the exact thing I am within the league, which is all of a sudden the Nets, who could have facilitated a trade because they had cap space, they spent some of it. The Bulls, they gave Jabari Parker $20 million. Now the teams that aren't trying to win right now, so they don't mind being almost a pass-through entity involving a three-team trade as long as they get a draft pick, those teams, that list is shortening, which is why people are circling back to Toronto. Because Toronto can make that trade work. Toronto does have a guy in DeMar DeRozan. They do have young players. And if you're the Raptors, maybe you think, man, Kawhi Leonard would be the best player in the conference. I think Giannis would be, but they might think he'd be the best player in the conference. LeBron's gone. We go make the finals, even if it's a one-year rental. We've never been to the finals. CC's reporting has been impeccable on this, that Kawhi wants to get to Los Angeles. But he can't make that happen for a year, not on his own. And CU reported last week that Greg Popovich...
Corners of the infield. They haven't really gotten a whole lot of production from first base this year. But I think just in general, if Greg Bird picks his game up like we all know he can, they're going to play amazingly well in the second half. So I don't know, man. It's crazy. Two teams, 100 wins in the same division. And like you're saying, you got to play in a one-game playoff against maybe a team like the Seattle Mariners, and maybe you get Big Maple or somebody like that. I mean, it could be tough.
Don't get ahead of that one-game playoff. Don't forget the regular season ends in Boston with the Yankees traveling to Boston.
3-game set.
That could be an amazing end to the regular season right there.
We all hope it is, because obviously that fight this year between Tyler Austin and Joe Kelly brought the fire back. And that's what we want to see. I mean, we want to see some emotion from these guys. It's been a minute since Don Zimmer and Pedro went at it. Alex and Jason Varitek went at it at home plate. So I think just in general, it's good for our game. I think anytime you have the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees playing well, obviously it's good for our game.
Speaking of the Yankees, they're in the mix right now in that Manny Machado race. Yep. Would you rather see them go after him, or would you rather see them put all their eggs in that basket to try to go out and get a starting pitcher?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, who are you going to get? I mean, there's not really a whole lot of frontline starters out there to get. I mean, at the trade deadline, I know Brian Cashman's a man. He's been doing it for 20 years, but it would be hard for me to say that Brian Cashman wants to go out and get a number 3 or a number 4 starter. I mean, if you're going to go to the deadline and give up all your great prospects you have and some of your ready guys, I want a number 1. I want a Jacob deGrom. I want a Thor. I want somebody like that. So when you look at it from that side, the Manny Machado thing sounds amazing, because you know he can impact the lineup from day one, and he's going to be in there every day till the end of the season.
All right, real quick, let's talk about the Dodgers for a second. Listen, they are, by the skin of their teeth, leading their division. They got a half-game lead, but it's even harder than it sounds, because it's only a 2-game lead on third place, the Rockies. What are the Dodgers? I think the Dodgers are the most talented team in the National League. No disrespect to the Nationals.
Of course. And
there's no shame in being 53-43, but this team could be 58-38. Like, they could be better. Other than being healthy, what do they need to have the second half of the season that they should have?
Well, I mean, obviously losing Kershaw for as long as they have, that's trouble. But then again, if you get him right for the playoffs, you got Ross Stripling here at his first All-Star game. You've got Walker Buehler, who's absolutely having a tremendous year, and Clayton Kershaw. And you have Jose Urias in the minor leagues. So if you think about bringing him up, that's almost like getting a frontline starter at the deadline. I got a chance to talk to Dave Roberts the other day when we were in L.A., and he's so excited for the second half. I mean, obviously they've gone through some struggles. Obviously there have been some great stories like Max Muncy, who's really kind of come on the scene, just like Cody Bellinger did last year, and really provided that energy, that spark that lineup needed. But I think just in general, it's all about consistency and staying healthy.
Could Machado be a Dodger?
Of course. I think he can go anywhere right now. I don't even know where the front line is. The problem is with the Baltimore Orioles that they had so many great offers in January, and they waited. And now his worth has gone down. So now it just kind of depends on who's going to give the Baltimore Orioles what they want. Because I'm sure they want some ready guys and they want some prospects. It's just all about who's going to give up who.
Less optimism you could not possibly have talking about the second half of the season. All right, just quickly, World Series, who do you like right now? You seem to think every single team is out there.
You know what? I mean, obviously, I think in my mind, I think it boils down to the Boston Red Sox and New York Yankees, although the Cleveland Indians are having a tremendous season, which I really, really enjoy watching those guys play.
And the defending champion Astros are like, we got
Houston
four
Astros.
number one pitchers.
I know, it's
Literally
crazy,
only going to
man.
be 2 teams.
I tell you what, if the Houston Astros can find some bullpen help, obviously Rendon has done a great job stepping in for Giles there on the back end. They have a really good chance. And on the National League side, I think it's either the Los Angeles Dodgers or the Chicago Cubs.
Awesome. Thank you.
Exciting second half of the season.
Let's go, man. We're ready.
Get in the cage, bro.
I wish, man. I wish this thing was a jersey, bro, but it's not. It's just
Hey,
What is this? What is that little bunny right there?
Little psycho bunny right here?
That's a great brand, see?
You like that?
I'll get you one of those polos,
you know
man.
What? I know a guy, bro. I'm going to hook
That
you
size?
up. I'm going to hook you up.
You say I don't buy you. No. Let me get it. C gives me trouble on Twitter. Says I don't buy him no
much more
presents
first
anymore.
things first right after
Like
this.
an old married couple. So I forgot the anniversary this year.
Welcome back to First Things First. Live from Nationals Park. Oh, boy, we got some extra guests coming your way. Hall of Famers Dave Winfield and John Smoltz are stopping by. And the Commissioner, Rob Manfred, will all be here. First Things First from our nation's capital. All right, guys, want to play some Take Your Pick?
Oh, I would love nothing more.
Really?
Let's do it.
Nothing
Absolutely.
more? Beautiful. Kyle Schwarber was in a groove in last night's home run derby, and his bat flip proved it, but not to be outdone. Bryce Harper had one of his own on the derby winner. So who had the better bat flip last night? Was it Schwarber or Harper? CC, take your pick.
I got to go with Kyle. I like it. I mean, he got the party started because, man, his first round, man, he got the energy going. It's also, him and I are from the same high school. He's got a little football mentality. He was an all-Ohio football player when he was at Middletown High School, so I'm going with Kyle, my hometown.
I figured you'd go with your hometown guy, and I understand it's a great bat flip. But nothing's better than the Bryce Harper bat flip because it's a walk-off bat flip. Because when you have a bat flip, that's not even a bat flip. It's just like a two-handed toss into the heavens because you just won the home run derby. Look at it. He knows he got it.
I'm surprised one of the pitchers didn't come out and start fighting him.
No. His dad comes out and hits him, showing him up. That was perfect. Two-handed, toss to the heavens for the hometown crowd. Go get it, Bryce.
I bet you a ton of people start naming their kids Harper after this. Oh, hold on.
That's one of Jenna's daughters' names.
That's one of my daughter's names. You probably know. Moving on to tonight's All-Star game on Fox. Mike Trout and Bryce Harper will be front and center with all the biggest names in the game under one roof. Who's more likely to win All-Star MVP tonight? Is it Trout or Harper? This time, Nick, you take your pick.
I'm going clean sweep. Bryce Harper. This whole weekend's going to be their whole All-Star festivities. Bryce Harper weekend. It's in his park. He had the amazing comeback in the home run derby. Now, I checked the line. The National League a slight underdog today. They give the All-Star MVP to someone on the winning team almost always. So, need a slight upset for this to happen. But I say Bryce Harper. Home run derby and All-Star MVP.
Wow.
I believe he lost a lot of energy last night. Very humid night for a guy to go through several rounds of the home run derby. I'm going with the best player in baseball, and that being Mike Trout. All right, I believe that Mike Trout and his swing will hold up compared to the big loopy home run swing of Bryce Harper.
He's anti-big loopy. All right, sticking with the All-Star game.
220 compared to 310.
All right. Boston's ace, Chris Sale, will be going up against, he'll be starter for the AL, while the Nationals' hometown hero, Max Scherzer, gets the nod for the National League. So which pitcher would you rather have, Sale or Scherzer? See, take your pick.
I'm going with the big. I'm going with the big right-hander. I got to go with
Chris Sale.
Chris Sale. Is Chris Sale right? No, Chris is the lefty. I was going to go with the hometown guy, but I'm going with Sale. What he's done for the first half of the season with the Red Sox been very, very impressive. Now, the reason why they're on that record-breaking pace is because of performance like his. When you look at that all-star lineup, him throwing the little cutter with the fastball for the first inning, maybe inning and a half, yeah, I got to go with Sale because of the first half of the season.
I think they'll give both of these guys one time through the order, 9 batters through the order. I don't know how long that's going to go into the game. You can't pick wrong here. I'm going with Scherzer just because I had to pick a guy. Both these, there's a reason they're starting the All-Star game, but Scherzer, 2.4 ERA on the year, a 180 batting average against for the year. I mean, he's been outstanding, obviously, over the last half decade in Major League Baseball. I'll pick him tonight, but you can't go wrong with Sale or Scherzer.
Matt Scherzer, the 12th pitcher to start an All-Star game in his home park. So
I was just watching this video, and I had his name in my brain before I went with Chris Sale. Thanks, Pep, for saving me.
Moving on to the New York Yankees. Their sluggers lead the majors this season with 161 home runs. They're on pace to break the single-season record, with Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge leading the Yankees with 48 combined home runs at the break. So who will end the season with more home runs, Stanton or Judge? Nick, take your pick.
I'm going to go with Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge has the slight lead right now, 25-23. He also has the benefit of having Stanton typically bat behind him in the lineup. So he sees a better quality pitches than Stanton because he has the excellent protection. And by the way, I might have a bet with a lot of members of our staff that Stanton will not get to 55 home runs. So I don't need him to have some second half like he did last year where he just all of a sudden starts hitting a home run and what was it, 19 out of 27 games. I don't need that in my life. Cost me too much money, so I'm going Aaron Judge.
I'm going with Aaron Judge for a different reason. Last year he struggled. After this date, we were at the All-Star game where he went crazy that night. It was an amazing night, but after that, he struggled as far as hitting the ball. He's been with the Yankees in that pennant drive, so this will be his second time around doing that. Compared to Stanton, I believe he gets used to it. The heat in the summer in New York, I like Judge being able to finish it out.
It's a really good point that Judge last year had just an unspeakably bad August. He bounced back in September, and then he had obviously moments in the postseason, but he does have that added little carrot of not wanting to have a second half fall off.
And a lot of people said it was because of what happened at the home run derby, which was why he...
The pressure of the home run derby.
Not the pressure.
That's ending careers.
That's
what's ending people's career.
All right, let's stick with the New York Yankees. They currently find themselves 4.5 games back of the Boston Red Sox in the AL East, with both teams on pace to win over 100 games. It is World Series or bust, so which team is more likely to make the World Series this season, the Red Sox or the Yankees? It's simple. CC, take your pick.
The Yankees are my team, but the Sox, man, you got to believe in what they're doing. I mean, a tremendous year, the pace for which they're performing, not only their pitching, their starting pitching being better than the Yankees, but the way Mookie Betts and the rest of the team is playing offensive baseball. Now, could they use another reliever? Yeah, they could. They got some pitching problems, but the Yankees wish that they had the situation that Boston has.
Listen, the Yankees are having an unbelievable season. The Red Sox are on pace for the 4th most wins in the history of the damn sport. They got the bet. Mookie Betts gonna win MVP. Chris Sale, your guy, might win the Cy Young.
Yep.
And you could argue that
he was so good, he was throwing right and
left. You could argue that Craig Kimbrell is the best closer in baseball. He's certainly on the short list. But yeah, listen, if the biggest need on your team is we need a guy like a setup man, then you're in great shape. The Red Sox are the best team right now in baseball for a reason. They got a 4.5 game lead in the division for a reason. I say the Red Sox.
All right. We got to take a break. Very special guest coming up on the other side. 12-time All-Star Dave Winfield is going to stop by.
There's very few times that I won't be the best athlete on the set. And right now will be one. I'm going to bow out to Mr. Winfield.
We are back here at Nationals Park with Hall of Famer Dave Winfield. Dave, we just saw a clip right there. Will you tell us a little bit about what you're doing here, about multiple myeloma and the campaign that you're working on?
Well, first of all, normally it's a joyous time, with the All-Star game and all these types of things. But thanks for giving me the opportunity just to mention about this dreaded disease called multiple myeloma. My good friend, Don Baylor, who was my teammate, friend, he was a coach and manager. He contracted this disease. It took his life too soon, but there is a campaign that's been developed by Amgen. It's called Myeloma MVP, and they want me to be one of the advocates for this because Don was such a good friend of mine. And so I'll just tell you that we want to encourage people who come across this disease, whether it's in their family or somebody close to them, that they have resources they can go to. They can go online, myelomaexplained.com, and learn about an MVP, they call it MVP plan. You can go online, download options on how you approach combating this particular disease. And all I can say, that he was a dear friend of mine. I didn't know much about it when he was going through this, but I'm much more aware of it, and we want to get the word out to get people aware of this.
So from an MVP, getting the word out, thank you for lending your name, because your name brings a lot of credibility to the overall awareness.
And again, the website's myelomaexplained.com if people want more information, figure out the steps they can take, opportunities for them to get help, or families or family or friends. So myelomaexplained.com.
Yes, you can go online and you can download all the questions you should ask your oncologist and caregiver, and the family can look at, okay, what am I trying to accomplish with my life, and put that together. It's been shown that when you have a plan, you can live a longer and healthier life, because you're going to have relapses, remission. It's incurable, but there's ways to approach it. There are people who live with it much longer now with a plan.
Okay. Oh, thank you for doing that, by the way. That's outstanding. We know that was Don. If people in the clip, that was Don Baylor's son, who's alongside you.
And Steve Garvey will also be a part of this campaign, but there'll be PSAs, other kind of commercials and interviews, and you guys are the first. So thank you very much.
Oh, we appreciate you talking about it and you being here.
I want to ask you real quick, though, about what C said when you were walking on. Says, because listen, I've been working with this guy for over a year, and we've had Hall of Famers on set. We've had young All-Pros. We've had NBA guys. I've never heard him say just immediately, oh, we got a better athlete than me out here.
The best athlete all time.
Well,
the best athlete of all time.
Tell me one better.
So you were drafted to 4 different teams in 3 different sports. I will admit, I didn't know the football side. I knew you were a star basketball player along with baseball, obviously, at University of Minnesota. And I didn't know the football side of it. So how does this happen? And why'd you pick baseball?
It doesn't happen nowadays. People guide their kids into one sport. They don't allow them to play. But you played multiple sports.
Yes, sir.
I know. That's why you were so athletic. Playing for my team also for the Vikings. That's who drafted me.
That's how I knew all that stuff,
too. The Atlanta Hawks, Utah Stars, and the San Diego Padres. I chose baseball because when I grew up in America, that was America's sport, the only sport. They didn't play soccer. They didn't play tennis. Remember, they didn't think that the Super Bowl would be a success. Fire those people who didn't, you know what I mean? But all of those things. So I chose a sport I liked. I played 22 years, 6 teams, both coasts, both countries, 12 All-Star games.
Right. Well, a half dozen Silver Sluggers, another half dozen or so Gold Gloves.
I enjoyed my career. I was fortunate. I was blessed. I made a lot of friends, won World Series, did a lot of good stuff. And if you have a good name, that's why I'm here today.
You glossed over 12 All-Stars like it's nothing. It's a very, very big deal. I mean, look what has become of the All-Star hoopla and everything, the game itself. Tell me a little bit about what the excitement is now, how it's changed over the years, and what you're looking forward to being here.
How about this? I came in the league 73, made the All-Star team, my first one in 77, New York. 78, it was in San Diego, and you guys wouldn't believe this, but you'll do some research. There was no fan fest. My foundation did the first party for an all-star team, for the all-star game, where guys were signing autographs, food, entertainment. We opened up the stadium for free. Don't tell the commissioner that. He said, what? Free! No, but and all of a sudden, everything has evolved tremendously. It's a great, wonderful period of time. All-star game, I played in 12. I didn't get tired. I knew that one day when I stopped playing, I wanted to look back and say, I did that. So 12 of them.
Look back. You did that. This is tremendous.
After 22 years of playing Major League Baseball, even game-winning hits in the World Series, you talked about all the memories, all the friends. What would stand out to you as far as Dave Winfield? This is the moment that I remember over all those other thousands of moments that you had.
Well, Chris, when you finish playing, we do miss the camaraderie, and we do miss the competition. But the thing that I would look back and say that I would really remember is getting a game-winning hit in '92 World Series. Toronto won championship for the first time ever. And those teammates will always be your brothers forever, and we won for not a city or a state, but a whole country. I still don't need a passport to go to Canada. Come on in, brother. We got you, man. But things like that. It was that hit. And how about this? Cito Gaston, when I was a rookie, was my roommate briefly, and then 20 years later, he's a manager, and I played for him. So things like that I'll always remember and cherish.
As the game's changed since you stepped away, what are some of the things about the game today that you think are better than when you were playing? And what are some of the things that when you watch it, you think you guys had right?
Well, compensation's better. No, but that part doesn't bother me at all. They're jumping into analytical analysis of how you evaluate a player or how they expect people to play underneath, just using numbers. Some of that's good, a lot of it's bad, because they're teaching people even to play the game. Like, we don't care if you don't put the bat on the ball. We want a home run or nothing. And, the first 3 months of the season, you could look back, there were more strikeouts than hits. That's not cool. That doesn't create energy and tension and interest. And so there's certain things about that I wouldn't teach a young person to play the game by looking at a statistical analysis. Give me some athleticism. Give me some verve for the game, some love for the game. And then once you have that, we can work all that other stuff out.
What about how the starting, because there's no part of baseball that's become more reliant on analytics than the use of starting pitchers and recognizing, all right, we've got a reliever that matches up great against this left-handed hitter. And I understand, listen, I'm a numbers guy. I understand why a manager would say I have to go with the best analytical or numbers matchup. But when you were playing, and gosh, I don't even have to go back to when you were playing. 5 years ago, it felt like the most important thing in baseball was a dominant starting pitcher, a guy that you give the ball to in the playoffs and say, he's going to go 8 innings and get me to my closer, or he can go the whole 9. Has that part of baseball going away to an extent? How has that changed your viewing experience? Because it's certainly changed the way the way you evaluate teams, the way you evaluate players.
Wow. Well, pitching's always going to be the commodity that team. If you want to win, you have to have that pitching, which is defense, which is holding the opposition in check. But when it comes down to it, I can't say I'm a 100% advocate for the way they use pitching now. Even at the younger ages, they teach people, I want you to try to throw 100 miles an hour, and you only go 100 pitches. That's not really pitching. But
that's
then they say,
the baseball.
Yeah, and then they say hand it over to the next guy, and then the next guy, and this is how we play the game. It's going to be interesting. How about even the Hall of Fame in the future? They're going to say, should we consider this guy for the Hall of Fame? He's got 3 complete games in his entire career.
That's a very good question.
Things like that. But it's different, and I wouldn't emphasize for young kids to try to stretch the boundaries of human performance and try to just work on velocity, work on movement, changing speed, location. That's pitching, and because I don't want to see everybody get hurt just because they're trying to reach the, like I said, hit a number up on miles per hour up on the scoreboard.
Dave, let's talk a little bit about the next second season here, if you will. You played 10 seasons with the New York Yankees. You understand what a rivalry is, because if you played for the Yankees, there's the Yankees-Red Sox dates back. First of all, do you still root for the Yankees when you see these two teams match up? How exciting is it? What are you expecting from this AL East race down the stretch?
Yeah, well, I work for the Players Association and
I know you can't
advisor,
say
so
it.
I love
I know, pull
everybody.
that back.
I support all the guys. But there's a serious race going on back east between Boston and New York. And that's what people focus on. But when you have guys like Mookie Betts leading the way, and then you have the Yankees with Judge and Stanton, and
it's fun.
Aroldis Chapman as a closer. I mean, that's a big rivalry. Boston's 38 games over 500. And New York is probably almost 30.
29, yeah.
29 games over, and one of them's only going to be a wild card team.
It's crazy.
And but that's what's good for baseball: rivalries, things like, and great young players. Great young players.
Yeah, and speaking of a young player, Aaron Judge. I went to Yankee Stadium. The Yankees are my team. Have been my team.
I'm a big dude. He's big brother.
Big dude, but very, very similar to you. And very seldom you ever going to see that type of speed, power being in a baseball player. When you look at him, do you see some similarities to yourself in what he's doing? And do you expect him to come back from that great rookie season to lead the Yankees the second half of the season?
It's going to be tough for him to match what he did last year. People didn't know what to expect out of him. And look, I love the way he plays. To see a big man that's graceful, that's fast, that's powerful, multiple skills. So I love watching him play, and he's a friend, and I support him. But it's going to be hard to match 50-plus home runs, and could have been an MVP. He was just shy of that. But it helps when you have other great players surrounding you like the catcher Gary Sanchez and
Stanton,
and,
of course,
all the guys,
all the guys.
So they can't just focus on you. So he'll have another good year, but it'll be hard to match what he did last year.
CC gives me a hard time sometimes, saying I'm a little too much of a prisoner of the moment, saying this guy's the best ever, that guy's the best ever.
Yeah, don't.
Okay, so let me ask you this though about Mike Trout.
Is he the best ever?
No.
I'm
But
kidding.
how does Mike Trout stack up against, through 8 years, the best players of each generation? Your generation, the one before that, the one before that.
Yeah, for this snapshot in time, he compares favorably with some of the all-time greats. But if he were to, God forbid, be hurt today and never play again, he's not going to the Hall of Fame. So don't ever say he's a Hall of Famer. Okay, wait till it's time. If he plays 8, 9 more years and keeps doing his thing, and I love to watch Mike play because he's not about all the fanfare and stuff. He's workmanlike. You wouldn't know him walking down the street.
Not into the analytics either.
Yeah,
just baseball pitchers, where they're pitching the ball and where he likes to hit the ball.
You know, and I asked him early in his career, I said, Mike, because he stepped in and did well right away. I said, you know, this is unusual. This is an anomaly for you to be able to perform at this level. I said, what from playing, recreational ball and coming up through the system and then playing professionally, what adjustments have you made to perform at this level? Well, none really. I thought, oh man, you unusual dude.
Yes.
So he has made pretty much a seamless change. That's not for everybody. Mentally, physically, it's hard to make those adjustments, that leap, but he's done it.
In the second half of the season, we did you a favor by letting you promo the things you're involved with, which we think are very, very important. We like to see you in New York. Come to the studio, be our guest, talk some baseball, second half of the season in New York City.
Well, I appreciate it. Probably get that opportunity. And when I finished playing baseball, I was with Fox for a bit, so it's family. You
Love
never
to
know.
see you
We would
again.
love it.
Absolutely.
7-time Gold Glove winner, 12-time All-Star, 22 great years you
First
had
ballot
playing
Hall of
baseball.
Famer.
Hey, remember, go to
MyLomaExplain.com,
and we'll learn a lot
Dave
more about
Winfield,
this.
thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah,
Enjoy
tweet me.
the game
if you think
tonight.
you know a better athlete, tweet me, because my vote is for Dave Winfield, the
More-
greatest athlete ever.
More First Things First right after this. Live from National Park. Got some big guests coming your way. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred and Hall of Famer John Smoltz will join the show. So strap in, get ready. We are just getting going here on a Tuesday morning live in our nation's capital. We are just outside the outfield wall at Nationals Park, site of last night's home run derby, site of tonight's 89th annual All-Star game. Last night they put on quite a show. Could
It's
they do
going
it
to be
again
hard
tonight?
to outdo what we saw last night now. Bryce Harper with the unbelievable comeback, the hometown hero. I think Harper's going to get the double dip. Home run derby
Has that
champ.
happened?
And All-Star Game MVP. It has happened. I cannot tell you the last time it happened. I think King Griffey Jr. may have been the guy. Garrett Anderson, I'm being told.
Well, because
It has
Gary
happened.
Anderson played for the Vikings, and that would have been
Gary Anderson,
really
that is
tough.
correct. That's
that
a good,
would have
it's a
been
great pull,
just,
Jenna Wolf.
Yeah,
That
on
is a
many
great
levels,
pull.
that would have been impressive
Absolutely.
feat. Over here.
Dave Winfield almost played for the Vikings. We found that out.
Let's do some stories to start your morning, because that went in circles. Swisher. It's a great shape, by the way. Biggest story in town this morning, the aforementioned Bryce Harper. The national star put on a show last night. He had an epic comeback, beating Kyle Schwarber. See, how impressed were you with what you saw out of Bryce Harper?
Well, I thought he had real pressure at the end. If you talk about 6 home runs in the final 29 seconds, but also it speaks to the overall athleticism and the endurance that Bryce would have. A lot of major leaguers wouldn't be able to pound that many at the end, knocking them out. It was exciting to see, tremendous drama.
It was perfect. It was the perfect ending. It's the hometown guy, down huge, down 9 home runs with a minute left, tying it up as his initial time expired, and then he had 30 seconds where he knew he was going to win the thing. It was great. Great.
All right, here's where we are on the Manny Machado watch. According to reports, a Machado trade is very close to being done, as in during the All-Star break, and all signs are pointing to him going somewhere other than the New York Yankees. Nick, where do you think Machado will go where he'll most likely impact the playoff race?
I think the place that he can have the most impact on the playoff race is in Los Angeles with the Dodgers. Nothing against Chris Taylor, but they could upgrade at shortstop. They've got two teams hot on their tail within 2 games. The Dodgers they went into this season as favorites over even the Chicago Cubs to go back to the World Series. They need to upgrade at least a little bit. I think Machado would be the perfect piece, and they'd probably be able to keep him.
Nick, you make a great examples of where he should go, why he should go there, and the potential deal to sign him long term. But the Orioles going to have tremendous regret. In baseball's winter meetings, they should have traded him. They would have gotten better prospects, better players then than now. Now baseball teams know that they got to get rid of them. They got to move them, so the package will be less than.
And in the winter meetings, more teams think they're going to be contenders. Now some of those teams that might have wanted them know they're out of the race.
You know I'm excited. I'm talking about baseball winter meetings.
Well, I'm going to get you real excited. Talk a little NFL now. Seahawks news. The Legion of Boom is now a thing of the past with Richard Sherman now on the 49ers. Cam Chancellor likely retired. Earl Thomas holding out for a new deal. Sherman says the Seahawks have, quote, lost their way, and added that all they have to do left is, quote, try to fill the hole and hope that it holds up. CeCe, what do you make of Sherman's comments?
He's just like any other player that established himself with a certain program, and now he's moved on, and he wants to reflect on, oh, they're not going to be as good without me, compared to, man, he had a great time in Seattle. It's the best time in the franchise history as far as the quality of football. The relationship they have with their fan base is very, very special. So that's what I see. A guy who wanted a new contract in Seattle, they wouldn't give it to him.
There's a difference between losing your way and taking a new path. I understand why, if I'm Richard Sherman, I feel like we left the Super Bowl on the table. We probably should have gone back to another one. Why did we tear it down when we did, being the Seattle Seahawks? But that doesn't mean they've lost their way. They are just starting a reboot of what they're trying to do. And that means by the way, they probably got worse at Richard Sherman's left cornerback position for the 2018 season. But it's more of a long-term look. Now, will Earl Thomas continue the departures from Seattle? We'll find that out in the next few weeks.
A lot of questions with that Seattle Seahawks team. But coming up, baseball's commissioner is with us. Rob Manfred will join the show. A lot of questions for him. First things first, live from Nationals Park in Washington, D.C. We're back after this.
I think our wardrobe people are addressing him because he looked awful nice. I'm sure he has an extensive wardrobe budget.
Welcome back to First Things First. Bryce Harper, Max Scherzer, fans looking for these two to light it up tonight. Harper lit it up last night at the Home Run Derby in front of about 50,000 strong here at Nationals Park, where we are just outside the outfield with the commissioner, Rob Manfred, who joins us now. Commish, thanks so much for being with us.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here.
We love having you. Oh, hey, how about a way to kick everything off with last night's Derby?
It was some home run derby. You know, we hit more home runs than we've ever hit in this format before. I think 18 more than ever. Two great performances, not only Bryce's. I mean, Kyle put on a great show.
Sure.
Really dramatic ending, and great for the fans here in Washington.
Wait, you can't just gloss. I mean, Bryce Harper showed up and gave these fans exactly what you couldn't have written a better script.
You know what? I don't know if you saw it, but it really started with the clip of him coming out the tunnel. It looked like a prize fighter getting ready to come out. I think it was a great clip. And, you know, with 1:20 left, he had a lot of work to do. It was unbelievable.
It seemed like that's what we were talking about before. With 55 seconds left, he's 9 home runs down. He sees 10 pitches the rest of the way, hits 9 of them out to tie it up. And I want to applaud you guys for making some adjustments to the Derby, because we showed a clip. Our friend Nick Swisher was out here earlier, and that was the 2010 Derby, so it wasn't a generation ago. And the Derby's always fun, but you guys realize that, all right, there's ways to make it more captivating and more edge of your seat. It doesn't have to be the hometown guy comes back to win it, but the head-to-head matchups and instead of having it number of outs, having it timed, I think were great adjustments, and you saw the perfect script for it last night.
Yeah, I think the clock was a great idea. I wish it was mine. It was actually Tony Petitti's, the deputy commissioner. Unbelievable in terms of changing just the pace of the event. event. We were laughing last night. You know, it almost goes too fast. In some ways, you wish, oh my gosh, it's over. You know, it really has become a very exciting event and a great way to lead into the All-Star game for us.
To have all your stars here in one location in the nation's capital, which used to be where you called home, how exciting is that for baseball? Now, you're not going to take credit for the changes in the event, but you told me you're going to take credit for the Yankees and the Red Sox playing the type of baseball there on the East Coast. How good is that for you and Major League Baseball?
Well, look, we think we have a great year going. We have some of our iconic franchises that are having really strong seasons. We have some good pennant races, and looking forward to the second half.
Well, I would imagine then when you're sitting down and looking at the schedule before this season starts, your wish list somewhere on there includes Yankees, Red Sox. Let them both be competitive. Let them fight it out and duke it out to the very end to make that pennant race super important and to make that division super important. And that's exactly where we are getting ready for the second half of the season.
No question about it. Look, sports about rivalries, and you know, there's none better than the Yankees, Red Sox. We have this year we got two really unbelievably good teams. I mean, they are really, really sound teams, great teams, and we should have a wonderful second half as we watch them fight it out.
The flip side to that is because they're both so good, right now you have the Yankees on pace for 106 wins. It's only happened 18 times in the history of this great game, and they would be in the one-game playoff. Now, I'm partial to the one-game playoff. I saw my Kansas City Royals against the Oakland A's have an unbelievable comeback that then spurred them all the way to the World Series that they ended up losing in 7. I love the one-game playoff. It keeps more cities in it. If you end up having a 100-win team in the one-game playoff, is that problematic or you don't mind?
You know, I really don't worry about it. I try to think about the format based on what we're trying to accomplish. Think about it from the other direction. If you had a year like this, where the Yankees and the Red Sox were playing under the old format, it wouldn't matter which one won the Eastern Division.
No.
Now, because of the threat of that one-game playoff, they got to play hard all the way through. And that's, look, you know, it's a 162-game season. It's important for us to make that whole regular season matter.
And I'll add another piece to it, because I already know, like, I can see into the future that the people are going to be criticizing it when it happens. But the flip side is also, you would have teams, if you have two teams in one division run away, like just far and away better than everyone else, then if you have a division like the West, right, where the Mariners and A's are good teams, but the Astros are probably the class of that division,
right,
the season's almost over for those cities. If they, you know what I mean? If you don't have that extra wild card spot, you now have almost half of the cities in Major League Baseball that at the break feel like we could make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, to me, as a guy from a small market from Kansas City, that's important.
Right.
The years that we're good, that we have a shot to actually get into the tournament.
I think when you think about playoff formats, you have to try to remove yourself from this particular year. You know, something's going on in the game. People are so passionate about our game, they get all worked up about it. But the format was designed to do two things. It was designed to make sure everybody played hard through the end of the season. I think it accomplishes that. And the second thing it was designed to do was to put value on winning the division. Okay? You win the division, you have an advantage. You don't have to go into that one-game playoff.
Let's talk a little bit about your pace of play initiatives and what some of the next steps are, some of the defensive shifts, some of the ways that you've helped to improve the game, speed the game up. Looking forward, what are the next few things that you want to see?
Well, let's start with this year. We think the things we did this year have been pretty good. We're down about 5 minutes in terms of game time. Let's start with the most important one. Sometimes we overlook it. They have been completely non-disruptive. There's not been one game where anybody was out there saying, if I just had one more mound visit, it would have been different. So we think these changes have been positive this year. I think the dialogue is going to shift a little bit. I think it's the way that the owners are thinking about it is that the game has changed on the field as a result of the use of analytics, people's approach to the game. And we're at a point in time where we need to drop back and ask, should we manage that change a little bit? You know, what GMs do, what field managers do, it's all directed at winning one or two more games. That may not be the best thing for us over the long haul. And we're trying to take a little broader look at the game, saying it's changed a lot. Do we need to step in and just maybe moderate some of those changes?
Do you see the league expanding under your tenure? And if it is going to expand, what would be a couple of the potential locations?
Okay. Look, I hope I'm around long enough to see us expand. I really do. I think 32 would be great for our sport.
32 years?
Yeah, I don't think I have 32 years in me. But I do think 32 teams would help us. It opens up a whole host of things. You get to 4-team divisions, which work better in the schedule. You could geographically realign. You could have a little different playoff format, a lot more flexibility. In terms of cities, I want to be careful here because, anytime you single one out, other cities feel slighted, but we have a real list of cities that I think are not only interested in having baseball, but are viable in terms of baseball. Places like Portland, Las Vegas, Charlotte, Nashville in the United States, certainly Montreal, maybe Vancouver in Canada. We think there's places in Mexico we could go over the long haul.
Can I just go back a question of what you were saying? Because I found the very end of your answer interesting. When you made the point that what might be best for a manager to win 1 or 2 more games might not be best for the overall health of the sport. And I think that's really important, is that ultimately, competition matters, but sports are an entertainment endeavor for the millions of fans. And so you guys, it sounds like you are having discussions about, okay, if analytically speaking it makes sense when a guy like Bryce Harper's up to do a major shift that totally aesthetically changes how you're looking at it, changes his approach, we get the numbers behind it, but is it good for the number of fans watching the game? You guys are considering adjusting rules about what teams are allowed to do in those spots?
Yeah, well, we're talking about how the game's played on the field. Think about it this way. You can't control the way people think about the game. They're going to analyze it.
Yes.
Everybody's smarter. They got more data. They know how to use the data.
Well, they got more information. That don't make them smart.
And that drives an organic process of change, right? It's a natural thing. The question becomes, at some point in time, are they doing things on the field that are not good for the entertainment value of our product over the long haul? And I don't think about it as us sitting in New York in some office building deciding we're going to change the game. Instead, I think about it, we're watching you change the game and deciding how far it's going to go.
Another aspect that could potentially change the game is legalized gambling. Do you look at that, or how do you in Major League Baseball look at legalized gambling moving forward?
Well, we see it as a challenge and an opportunity. So let's talk about the challenge first. There would be no commissioner's office were it not for the threat of gambling and the need to protect the integrity of the game. So we know we need to be out there active in the states and with the federal government, depending on how this is all going to unfold, making sure that the laws get passed, put us in a position to defend the integrity of the game. No rap on state regulators, but when it comes to Major League Baseball, we don't delegate integrity to anybody else. It's our responsibility, and we intend to accept that responsibility. So that's the challenge. The opportunity is, look, everybody knows the research. Gambling can drive fan engagement. You want to take advantage of that fan engagement opportunity without letting, gaming has a way of kind of swallowing things up. People get passionate about it. It can get too close to the sport. It can become too big. So we want to take advantage of that fan engagement opportunity without having gambling being too intrusive with respect to the sport.
There's been some talk about the National League adopting the designated hit rule. I'm just curious if you pros and cons the gambling aspect. Give me the pros and cons of the NL doing that.
Well, I think that, first of all, I think the status quo is the most likely outcome. I really do believe that. I think that if you had common rules across the two leagues, the biggest single advantage would be it would open up flexibility in terms of how much interleague play. One of the things, things like that, formats would be easier. You wouldn't have the problem in the World Series of flip-flopping with the rules. Those are advantages. The disadvantage is, there are people who believe that the National League form of play is the purest form of baseball. And if you think about it, it becomes extinct if you get rid of if you move the DH into the National League. It's the only place where you still play without the designated hitter. So, I think it's a debatable point. I think it gets our fans passionate, and the conversation itself is good about it.
Speaking of being passionate, one thing I know you're very passionate about is all your guys' youth baseball initiatives, most notably Play Ball. I did a little research on this before you came on the show, but for the audience that didn't, can you tell people what Play Ball is exactly and why it's important to you?
Yeah, Play Ball is really an umbrella for a variety of programs that we have put in place to try to drive youth participation. They range from kind of grassroots one-day events that we do in partnership with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, just to introduce communities to the game, show them where they can get playing opportunities, all the way up to our youth academies, MLB youth academies, where we're developing young players who are going to be here in a few years. It has been maybe the most important initiative since I've been commissioner in an era of declining youth participation in all sports. The only major sport, including the ones that everyone talks about, soccer, lacrosse, that has grown over the last 3 years has been baseball. Our participation has grown at an average annual rate of 6%, and it's something we're really proud of.
Mr. Commissioner, thank you so much for being with us.
I'm glad to be with you.
We learned a lot. We are very excited for the game tonight. So thanks again. We're going to take a break. Rob Manfred. More First Things First right after this. You can catch baseball's biggest stars for an unforgettable show from the nation's capital, the MLB All-Star Game tonight at 7:30 Eastern, only on Fox, or stream it live on the Fox Sports app. We will get to Bryce Harper's big night in a minute. But first, a couple plays you may have missed.
Oh, here's C's favorite guy.
Keeps finding ways into our show, catching the lob from half court, C.
I mean, we got more highlights of him in the summer league than we had him playing in Kansas last year.
No doubt.
I mean, where'd this guy come from?
Listen, man, you get on a team with LeBron, you get in summer league.
No, he's not on the team with LeBron.
He is.
All right, moving on.
I mean, not in summer league, but he's a Laker now.
Josh Hart.
LeBron's a Laker.
Look at him here. Nice finish in the line.
Both these guys going to be on the real roster, see? Josh Hart and Svi, the kid from Kansas. Josh Hart has a more refined game at this point in his career than I thought. I don't know what he did over the summer before he got to Summer League, but he was in the lab. He's played well in Summer League.
Yeah, he's continued to get better, just like our guy at Villanova teaches him. Work on your game in the summer. It will show. I believe he's going to be a good player. I hope the Lakers don't trade him.
Former Arizona Wildcat Kobe Simmons with an awesome
put-back slam.
Just gonna call
Go get it, young man. And he was probably named after Kobe Bryant, but they didn't spell it like that, which is intriguing.
Are you certain that's the case?
If I was certain, I wouldn't have said probably. The fact
Dusty,
that
sounds
probably,
like some stuff off of your desk.
Nah, man, there's some young LeBrons running around. We saw a whole generation of Shaquilles. Like, we see guys that, and you told me there were dogs named Chris. It ended up turning into people named Chris as your career got better and better. Seeing the same thing. This is what? That's not a bad misappropriating that story. I have that right, don't I?
Yes.
Yeah. People initially were naming their dogs Chris. Made a few more Pro Bowls. All of a sudden, they're naming their kids Chris.
They didn't think I was going to be that good. That's why they named the dogs.
Started with a pet fish, moved up to a dog, and eventually became people. Let's play Drawing a Blank. All right. Let's start with Bryce Harper. Put on a show last night, winning the Home Run Derby in front of his home crowd. But Harper could be on his way out of Washington as he enters free agency. CC, Bryce Harper's team next season will be blank.
You guys heard the crowd last night. The crowd wants him here. They should keep him here. The Nationals need to be able to keep Josh playing.
Bryce Harper.
Bryce Harper, excuse me. I'm baseball. I'm Nationals crazy. I'm baseball crazy. But you know the fans. They love him here. You mentioned the kids last night walking around with the little jerseys. How much would it cost you to replace them? It's not worth it. It would be a tremendous blow to this organization.
And because of how he's played this year, he's not going to get $400 million offers across baseball. He's probably not going to get a $300 million offer. So all of a sudden, it's more financially doable for the Nationals to keep him. I agree. It's the Nationals. Like, do people have to remember how big of a deal it was for the Nationals to be able to draft Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg? You can't have that era come to a close without one playoff series victory. Like, you just can't. And so,
with this crowning moment being the home run derby.
Well, you can't have that. Like, He won the MVP 3 years ago. He's obviously hitting for power this year, not for average. But I think you got to bring him back. You can't lose a guy like Bryce Harper for nothing. You can't.
Another All-Star potentially on the move is Orioles' Manny Machado. Reports are Machado could be dumped before the All-Star break is even over. Nick, what do you think? Machado's team by Friday will be blank.
I think he's going out west. I think he's going to the Dodgers. I think he's changing leagues from the AL to the NL. And I think the Dodgers are a team that knows they have not played quite up to their talent. Some of that's the Clayton Kershaw injury. But they also know this. They don't have just one team chasing them. There's a lot of teams in baseball that's got one team chasing them in the division. They got two teams chasing them. That means they are one bad week away from dropping all the way to third. Manny Machado solves a lot of those problems.
I like going to the Dodgers, and not as a rental, as a long-term solution. Everyone wants to go to L.A. Talk to Kawhi's uncle. He said that Manny Machado wants to call to Kawhi, but he's going to play for the Dodgers, while Kawhi plays for the Lakers, and if Lakers don't want him, then he'll play for the Clippers. Okay. L.A. is the winner. Everyone's going to L.A. now.
Everyone's going to L.A.
I like it. All right, moving on to the New York Yankees. They are on pace to win over 100 games this season, but still find themselves 4.5 back of the Red Sox. Yanks have been carried by their big bats. They've relied heavily on the long ball, so see the player most important to the Yankees for the second half of the season is
I don't believe the Yankees and Brian Cashman get that pitcher to be their #2 starter, so I believe that CC Sabathia is the most important player. They need someone that can kind of secure that lineup. We know that they're hitting the ball well. We know they've mastered the long ball, but if they're going to make it to the World Series, they got to have better pitching. CC is the guy. Now, don't have him leave you no tickets and everything. He's a little tardy on that, but
the most important Yankee for the second half of the season is not currently a Yankee. He's not on the team because I do think they're going to add that pitcher. I think the biggest move at the deadline that is not Manny Machado related will be the Yankees adding a starting pitcher. Now, it's not going to be Jacob deGrom. It'll probably be a tier beneath that. But when you have the offense the Yankees have, you have Luis Severino as a legitimate #1 starter, and CeCe's a fine #2. He's a great #3. If you can bring in a midseason acquisition, bolster that starting rotation, you know Chapman slamming the door shut at the end of games. That's what they need because they're a really good team, but they're chasing a great team in the Boston Red Sox, not even to mention what Houston's doing down south. So I say the most important guy, not currently a Yankee.
All right, let's move on to tonight's All-Star game here at Nationals Park. Boston's ace Chris Sale will be the starter for the American League, while the Nationals' hometown hero Max Scherzer gets the nod for the NL. CC, the pitcher you want, if you had to win one game, would be blank.
I'm going with Chris Sale. If you look at batting average, look at innings pitched, number of strikeouts, total ERA, but the batting average being 184, that right there, you're going to have a chance to win a lot of games. They're not going to be able to score a whole bunch of runs. So Chris Sale, his ability to be able to change speeds, pitch in pressure situations, Chris Sale would be my choice.
Chris Sale's a great choice, and this year, he's probably the best answer based on this season. Top 3 ERA, top 3 batting average against, as you mentioned, but I'm taking a longer view of it. I'm taking the view of the guy who I think is the greatest pitcher of his generation. Maybe the greatest, in fact, definitely the greatest Dodger pitcher since at least Sandy Koufax, and I'm going to say Clayton Kershaw. Clayton, I know he doesn't have
It must be the one win during the regular season. It can't be you want to win one win in the postseason.
I think Kershaw's postseason resume is actually unfairly maligned due to a couple bad innings. Clayton Kershaw is a generational talent. He hasn't had an ERA over 2.5 since 2012. Clayton Kershaw is the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. Still, I will take him to win one game.
All right, we've been talking a lot about Mike Trout recently. He'll look to ride his hot hand in tonight's All-Star game as well, while Bryce Harper will still be coming down from his home run derby high last night. Both looking to outdo each other for MVP honors. So, CC, the All-Star MVP tonight will be blank.
I'm going with Aaron Judge.
Ooh.
Aaron Judge laying under the radar, had a huge All-Star week last year, struggled the second half of the season, bounced back in the playoffs. I believe he gets it going tonight. I believe he turns on a couple fastballs, puts a couple out here center field, left center field. I like Judge to get it done.
I'm going with the Garrett Anderson double dip. Bryce Harper wins the home run derby, wins the All-Star game MVP, and does it all in front of his hometown or his home team crowd, leading to a better second half of the season, leading to the Nationals making the playoffs, leading to a long-term contract extension for Bryce Harper. I think it all started last night. His dad throwing him those pitches. 9 home runs in the last minute of the home run derby.
All that pressure.
Keep it going. Keep it going.
I mean, if I just let you go, then he's 60 and then AARP.
I'm not going that far. But I'm saying
kids,
home run derby champ to All-Star MVP to Nationals making the playoffs. I'm not saying winning a series. That might be a couple years away still now. To a long-term extension with the Washington Nationals. Bryce Harper, double dip.
I like it. All right, we got to take a break. Coming up on the other side, a little bit of basketball. Will Kawhi Leonard's opinion about the Spurs change now that they can give him $219 million? That is the Supermax. That is next on First Things First.
You look at somebody and say, boy, I marvel at the way X does this or this guy does that, and sometimes some of those players, because they're in bigger markets, get more attention. Does that ever affect you?
You know, I hear that all the time about being in a market, obviously not on the East Coast. You know, when I go on the East Coast, the media is unbelievable. I follow the young guys that, you know, came up in the league when I came up and, you know, just have the unbelievable talent and just enjoying every bit of it like I do. I play the game hard. They play the game hard, like you said. You know, Machado, seeing him with Harper, Mookie Betts, and, you know, J.D. Martinez, it's always fun competing against them. You can ask any of my teammates. I'm a baseball guy, so, you know, after a game, I'm looking at, you know, what other teams did and what other guys do, and it's, you know, that's how I am.
Mike Trout and Alex Rodriguez and the lovely Washington Monument on a warm but beautiful day here in Washington, D.C. We are live at Nationals Park getting ready for tonight's 89th annual Major League Baseball All-Star Game. Chris Carter, Nick Wright.
That whole interview is during the All-Star game. We'll be able to see it tonight. Coverage starts at 7:30. It's one of the cool things, I'll be honest, about doing shows with Chris versus shows I've done in the past where you don't have, you always get a different level of honesty from a Hall of Fame caliber athlete when there is someone they meet at eye level on set. Like you and I have done shows in the past when Chris has been out and we've had pro football players on, and it's always just a different feel. And so when you have a guy as good as A-Rod.
The show's crap, CC, when you're not here. That's what he's trying to say, but he's using so many more words.
That's a separate issue. My point is when you have a guy as good as A-Rod, there aren't many people that can meet Mike Trout eye to eye on baseball ability. A-Rod can. So I think you're going to get to see a different side of Trout than we've been able to see in many of his interviews.
Yeah, it's totally different because if the guy's doing the interview the right way, there's more of an understanding of we've been through the same thing. So the respect level, I mean, you can respect the broadcaster, but it's a different level of respect that someone has been through or going to go through the same things that you've been through.
And so we haven't really been able to see like an insight into who Mike Trout is because we know he's an amazing baseball player. And so I'm excited to watch that tonight.
All right, indeed. All right, moving on to the NBA now. Big day for Kawhi Leonard and the San Antonio Spurs. No, they didn't sign him, but now they can pay him. The Spurs can now officially offer him the 5-year, approximately $219 million Supermax contract. That being said, Kawhi still reportedly wants to be traded to Los Angeles, where he would make less money. See, what does it say that Kawhi is willing to leave that money on the table in order to go play somewhere else?
It just speaks to who Kawhi is as far as his overall character, what are the things that he's about. He spent most of his life in the San Diego area, wants to be back in that area, wants to play for a different organization, preferably the Clippers or the Lakers. Those are his only two choices as far as where he wants to go. And it also lets you know that there are some things within San Antonio's organization that he has decided he would much rather not be a part of, and money is not his motivation. He believes that in Southern California, he'd be a lot happier. So that's the reason why he's made the decision to force San Antonio to trade him.
See, if you didn't know Kawhi and his people, if this were, pick a different player, if this were Anthony Davis, or just another superstar caliber player, and you didn't know the background, would it not shock you that a guy might leave $70 million on the table?
Well, on paper, it looks like $70 million, but it's not $70 million. It's different than that because you get that 5th year of the contract with the team, and then go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I understand your point that it's 5 years, 219, as opposed to 4 years, 140-ish, and so that's where the $70 million. But okay, so make it 5 years. Now we're talking, okay, it's not $70 million, it's $40 million. It's not No matter how much money you have, it's not a rounding error. It's an enormous amount of money, and a guy with that some injury history, that having the 5 years locked in is important. I mean, the only reason this isn't shocking to me is because you've been covering this story and we've been covering this story for months, so we knew this was coming. Otherwise, this would be to not sign the Supermax unless the team just has no history of winning or something like that is mind-boggling.
Well, most time people aren't being honest. They always say, well, it's not about the money, but very rare do you see a person like Kawhi that he actually can back that up, where it isn't about the money. It's just about where he wants to play basketball and where he thinks that he's going to be happy.
And where he doesn't want to play basketball, because as you've told us, there's a reason he doesn't want to stay in San Antonio anymore. Yes, he wants to go to Los Angeles, but equally as important for him in making this decision is he doesn't like some of the things that are happening in San Antonio and the way he's been treated by the organization.
Yeah, of course. That's one of the reasons why. He's not upset with Popovich, how he coached them. He's not upset that they don't have a chance for championships. But the way they police the players day to day, it's been told to me they want a bunch of yes people, a lot like New England Patriots. That's the only comparison that I would have in pro sports. And Kawhi, he's a guy, he doesn't mind doing exactly what the organization wants, but he's also a guy that he would like to be learned. He would like to have more information, and he would like for them to be able to explain a lot of the simple things they want the players to do. And he might do them, but he'd like an explanation of why they would have that approach.
All right, so this is Brian Windhorst talked about this yesterday, and it's similar to what I'm hearing, which is if you talk to cap people, you don't even need like some great league source. Just people that really understand the cap and the CBA, or even can just play with the trade machine online, you realize because of the contracts the Lakers have, and because they didn't trade for it, they didn't sign guys to multi-year deals. They got guys to one-year deals, and they don't have a lot of mid-priced veterans. There's no practical way to make a two-team trade, Kawhi Leonard going to the Lakers, work. We also know the Clippers just flatly, even though they have the contracts to make it work, don't have the assets. Now, the Lakers could make it work come late December once you can trade away those one-year players. But you've been told Kawhi is not going to play for the Spurs ever again, correct?
I've been told that Kawhi wants out of San Antonio. I've been told he'd prefer to be traded to the Los Angeles, to the Clippers, or the Lakers. That's what I've been told.
So the reason I bring it up is it's one thing to get to Los Angeles immediately, and it's another thing to get there a year from now. And unless there's a third team, I've been saying all along, I think it's going to end up a Laker. But now, even if the Spurs and Lakers agree on compensation, let's say Ingram, Kuzma, a first-round pick, and a pick swap, Spurs say that's good enough, there needs to be a third team involved to help the cap machinations work. And the reason I brought up Windhorst is he talks about how the Nets don't have cap space all of a sudden. The Bulls signed Jabari Parker to $20 million. They don't have the cap space to help make it work all of a sudden. And that's one of the reasons you're hearing Toronto come back into the fold.
They can make it work.
They can make it work. And if the Spurs like DeMar DeRozan, that's also an attractive win-now proposition. If you're the Raptors, even if you think it's just a rental, you could say, does Kawhi Leonard plus Kyle Lowry and our young pieces make us the favorites in the East? And so we won 59 games last year without Kawhi Leonard. He's better than DeMar DeRozan. You understand why for Toronto, even if it's just a rental, that would be an attractive piece. That's something that I thought had a close to 0% chance 2 weeks ago. Now, as it becomes tougher and tougher for a trade to the Lakers or Clippers to be consummated without another team helping out, I think you have to open up to the fact that Toronto could be actually legitimately in this game right now for Kawhi.
If Toronto trades for Kawhi without talking to him and getting the player's opinion on it, I would say it would be very, very foolish. So on paper, it might look like Toronto, but as far as being able to get a deal done, I don't see Toronto being able to get a deal done with Kawhi.
Well, so that's what I want to ask you. If they can't make a trade work with the Lakers, and the fact that you need the third team matters at this point, do you believe Kawhi? Isn't Kawhi's number one priority getting out of San Antonio? Even if that means there's a...
No, I think his number one priority is getting to Los Angeles.
So, okay. I mean, that's... So if Toronto Toronto, I think is the most likely. If they call up the Spurs and the Spurs say you can talk to Kawhi, do you have any idea of do you think Kawhi's response is, listen, it's a rental, or Kawhi's response is, you shouldn't even trade for me at all?
My message has been consistent. What I've heard from Kawhi's camp is they are not entertaining anything in the Paul George variety. They want to go to Los Angeles, want to do it as soon as possible.
Anything else?
No.
All right.
I just want the audience to know that it's not as simple anymore as the Lakers and the Spurs understanding it. The Clippers don't have the assets. People don't follow the cap, and I get it. Like, oddly enough, the Bulls giving Jabari Parker $20 million made this more complicated.
Right.
The Nets doing what they did make this more complicated when you need a third team involved.
John Smoltz is coming up next. He's standing just over CeCe's shoulder. Hall of Famer John Smoltz on the program on the other side. Much more first things first.
I know him.
Oh, yeah. Good to see you, Smoltzy. How are you, sir?
Baby. Verner's going to be here for an adjustment, 30 minutes.
Back here on First Things First, we are at Nationals Park, side of the 89th Major League Baseball All-Star Game tonight, 7:30 Eastern on Fox. We are joined now by John Smoltz. And way back in 1996, Smoltz took the mound. Remember this? Like it was yesterday.
I was out of the stretch a lot, I noticed, in this. Man. Yeah, I'm like, do I ever pitch out of the windup? But no, it seems like 100 years ago. But
is that in my hometown stadium, Cincinnati?
Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia, same turf. That turf, man. I left some skin on those turf. Philadelphia, Cincinnati Red Stadium, some of the hardest turfs, right? You haven't played that.
Absolutely, and some of the hottest places because the double-deck enclosed stadium when it used to be built, all the same.
What's the day leading up to the game like when everyone sort of descends upon the city and you're there with the best and the brightest and the most talented just like yourself and you're all kind of getting ready for the game?
Yeah, it's busy. A lot of things going on. I think some things have changed, but, you know, you get a chance to bond a little bit in the locker room, signing a bunch of stuff, getting to talk to players you want to talk to, and maybe some you don't want to talk to because they've owned you or there's been an incident. But it's one of the most incredible feelings, especially back then. There was no interleague play, so you didn't see the other side, you know, and you didn't see a lot of the interactions that nowadays, you know, you're familiar with. So you feel like you've checked in. You know, you've checked in with some of the greats, especially when it was your early part of your All-Stars and there had been 10 and 12 and 13-time All-Stars already on the roster.
What is your fondest All-Star game memory, if you can pluck one?
Well, ironically, it was my first one only because the way it came about. You know, I was the only representative for the Atlanta Braves in '89. It was in Anaheim. Tommy Lasorda was the manager. I was scared, as you can imagine, and he told me I was going to pitch second behind Rick Russell. And that was the year where, of course, Wade Boggs and Bo Jackson hit homers in the first inning, and I wasn't in the bullpen. No one took me to the bullpen. I didn't know how to get there. And they said, we just want to watch the first inning. And I was like, well, all right, I'm going to pitch in the third. Well, Tommy Lasorda got to the bullpen phone and asked to get Smoltz up. And I was in the dugout. And
I was sitting next to him.
And he looked at me and goes, kid, what are you doing? And he said, how many pitches will it take you to warm up? I said, give me 7 or 8. And I got down there, and that's really what happened. 8 pitches. I was in my first All-Star game and completely forgot everything that everybody told me. Ended up giving up a run. It was first and third, 1 out, tie game, and Bo Jackson was up. Now, my vision of Bo Jackson in the first inning was 440-foot home run. I got him to hit a ground ball to A.smith, to Ryan Sandberg, and I'm like, yes, double play out of the inning. He beat it out.
Oh, really?
He beat out a routine double play, and I got the loss. So my first All-Star game.
Not where I thought that story was going.
Does it go different if you get to warm up? Come on, it's the guys. You were the young guy. They had to give you. You didn't know.
It's not your fault. They never showed you where the bullpen was.
It wasn't gonna matter because Bo Jackson was gonna be warmed up.
Yeah, Bo Jackson. It was unbelievable. So youngest guy to ever, I think, still to get the loss, and the oldest guy at the time to get the win was Nolan Ryan.
I got to switch gears with you a little bit. Know you're a huge golf fan, one of the best golfers as far as a former pro athlete as a golfer. Spent a lot of time on the Braves check while he was playing golf with his other aces on that pitching staff. Tried to qualify for this year's U.S. Open. I don't think normal people understand what a tremendous feat that was. I was pulling for you. I'm a huge fan of golf. You've played golf with your friend Tiger Woods. Explain the type of pressure of playing with Tiger Woods and what that brings compared to Tommy Lasorda grabbing you with, hey, kid, what are you doing?
Well, when you play with Tiger, TV doesn't do it justice. There's no way to justify on TV until you see up close what the ball does and the sound that it makes and just the shots that he hits. And playing with him is simply like this. If you miss the green playing with Tiger, you know you lost. If you hit the green, there's a good chance you lose. So it's an amazing, we played about 30, 40 rounds of golf over the day, and there's a lot of fun memories.
Now, I've heard from some of my friends that have played with him, Tiger Woods, we know one of the best golfers ever, but one of the top 5 trash talkers and needlers of all time.
Yes, yeah, you don't want to. When I would bring some of my teammates to go play in spring training with them, I said, whatever you do, don't get caught up in thinking you got to talk trash when he's talking trash, because it's just going to hurt you. And they would all get sucked in. But, yeah, he's phenomenal when it comes to turning it up. He's phenomenal in his imagination. And just, again, seeing it and playing, I got a chance to play with him and Annika at the same time. That was the first time Annika played. The 2 #1 players in the world, I got a chance to play with them. And seeing that and seeing the straightest golf ball I've ever seen in my life from Annika, I actually got a chance to play, and I beat her, and I got more notoriety for that than anything I did in baseball.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. How do grown men get sucked into trash talking? Please, Nick and I.
It's the athletic.
No, I'm sorry.
Come on.
You are such an accomplished athlete.
Yeah, that's how we got there, by talking trash junk to people at the mound.
No. I'm sorry. I need to know. Tell me something that would affect me.
In your own sport, you're comfortable. When you get out of your own sport and you're playing with some of the greats in golf, you don't want to talk trash to the greatness, because it's just going to backfire, and it certainly did for a lot of guys. It was never a good thing, because all you did is turn up his volume. And when you turn up his volume and his attention, you're just bringing more attention to detail you don't need to do.
The PGA Tour is at the British Open this week. But in the next couple weeks, Tiger and Phil talking about playing for $10 million. Who do you have, and what type of match you see that being?
Well, I wish, and I've been wishing for this for a long time. I wish that I don't know, is it their own money? It would be great if
that is up in the air. It's got to be their own money.
I would think it'd be awesome if it is. That is must-see TV, and that is the 2 iconic figures that basically, when you talk about the heyday of golf, you talk about Phil and Tiger. I think that is phenomenal.
And if you people remember, and then I promise we'll get to baseball. I mean,
maybe.
You two sit next to each other and talk golf for 3 hours. They used to do those primetime events, Tiger versus whomever. And it petered out after he took on Phil, because they had such an icy relationship that it just wasn't pleasing for the viewer. Tiger's changed, Phil's changed, they've come together somewhat. But seeing them, people like, oh, it should go to charity. No. It shouldn't be television money or sponsor money. Each of them brings $5 million and a couple duffel bags to the course. You put it on the 18th green, and then whoever wins the match play gets to take those duffel bags home. That's must-see TV.
What's the largest amount of money you ever played for?
Not that.
No. Come on with it, bro.
You know, $100 match, $200 match.
Come on now. It's got to be a little more than that.
I don't believe
you had to have a couple Nassau's guy pressed you when the ball was in the air.
Oh, it starts at 100 and 200. And
okay. All right, it started.
At the end, there might be a press or two.
Yeah. Like I said, we talk golf the whole time. The Red Sox, Yankees. You got 2 teams in the history of baseball. 18 teams have won at least 106 games.
Yep.
You got 2 teams in the same division on pace to win 106 and 112 games. I can't remember at the break 2 teams both being 30-plus games over 500 in their own division. I'm sure it's happened. I just can't pull it in my head. What do you think of the race so far?
Well, it's back. The rivalry's back, right? Everyone talked about the last couple of years. The rivalry's been a little bit dull. The teams have kind of reinforced young players that are going to be there for a while, stars. That's what you used to seeing in New York and Boston. But I think it's also the philosophy of baseball today that's changed, where more teams are rebuilding. More teams are going to lose 100. So I think that's kind of when you're seeing those kind of build up that these going to be a chance for more 100-win seasons than ever before because of the philosophy. But I can tell you this, it's going to get very interesting if one of those teams, which one of them will, have to play in a wild card game.
Sure.
If one of those teams lose that one wild card team, to see what the rhetoric or noise that comes down.
The backlash.
And as CC would say, then win the division.
Yeah. I think that's the only way it's going to change a format. I'm not a fan of the format. I'm not a fan of playing 162 games and putting yourself in a situation, especially now, of winning 100 games or being 10 games better than your wild card team and having one game determine your fate.
And listen, you came by that opinion honestly. You guys had multiple years where you're the best team in baseball. You can make the argument 5 games, not a fair sample size over the course of the season. Let me give you the counterpoint quickly as a guy from a small market, a guy from Kansas City. It's so rare. I know the Royals went to a couple World Series recently, but I'm 33 years old. There's like 4 years we've been relevant. One of those years, we were one of those wild card teams. And to have and a couple years after we won the World Series of the next year, the reason that I could hold on to hope that maybe we can go on another magical run was because there was that 5th spot. And right now, if you're a fan of the A's, if there's not the 5th spot, your season's over at the break. Does that push on you at all? Or
I don't have a problem with the 5th spot. I just want to see a series.
Gotcha.
I want to see you be able to play a 2 out of 3. I want to be able to see not one game defined because you don't play baseball for one game. And, when you see these one games, it's manager nightmares. It's Johnny Holstaff. It's not normal baseball. And I think if you can get a series, then you're at least giving that team a chance to do something that you're familiar with. And more importantly, if you don't win your division and you have to play a series,
your pitching staff's depleted.
The team that wins the division that gets to play your next has a decided advantage, which it should be, instead of just a one-game playoff.
Let's talk a little bit about where the game is right now. You look at the Yankees and the Red Sox. Yanks on the verge of breaking the home run record. The Red Sox on the verge of breaking the Grand Slam record. There's a lot of, go big or go home, all or nothing with hitting. Do you think the game has gotten too far in that direction? I mean, we're talking about it with Bryce Harper right now, that, he's okay with the home runs, but look where his batting average is.
Yeah, it has gone too far. And I think everything is kind of in cycles and usually has a way of correcting itself. I don't know that this is going to correct itself. And I think the way the game has gone analytically and sabermetrics, it's become this kind of push of, okay, we're okay with strikeouts, we're okay with homers, but are we okay with the byproduct of what fans are seeing long term? And I don't think that's going to be a case that the commissioner will be very comfortable with, because the way the game is being played is played with less action, more volume of power and kind of sexiness, but it's taking away from the action and athleticism in our sport. And I think at some point, those numbers you cited, it is very difficult to win a World Series that way. It's very difficult. I haven't seen a team win a division or win a World Series leading the lead in home runs and strikeouts. It just rarely happens. So the teams that we've watched win a World Series, Houston Astros got strikeouts out of their lineup. They were able to change analytically, even though the numbers speak to it. And even the Kansas City Royals that you talked about,
I mean,
the
San
Francisco Giants, the St. Louis Cardinals, all those teams did it primarily in a formula that works. You might have your outlier every once in a while, but this will be the test this year with the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox.
You talk about the analytics hurting baseballs from a fan's perspective. What about from a kid's perspective? I'm very, very familiar with your career. You did it both ways as a reliever and also as a starter. If John Smoltz is pitching today and he's 15 years old, do you believe that baseball and how they're training play, that you can make it to the Hall of Fame if you're the same kind of kid?
No way. I think it's the change that ultimately shortens careers. Yes, the financial package is still nice for a lot of short term, but the shortens career because your max effort, you're doing things that you weren't taught to do before. I'll give you this example. If golfers all of a sudden, all we cared about was how far they hit it, and there was no touch, no putting, and all we looked at was just the amazing distance that golf would get pretty boring. And baseball has gone to this launch angle, and how far can you hit it and how hard can you throw it? And I think there's greater athletes than we've ever seen before, but the fine-tuned skills are being missed out, and the ability to play the game is totally different. I do not blame players for surviving in the system that exists today. I do not blame players. But I would ask every player if I was playing today, do you want to play 10 years or 20 years? Or do you just are you good with 6 years? Because at the rate you're going, the injury rate through the roof, you're maximizing every effort you got every time you go out there. You're throwing it 100 miles an hour. You can't last that way.
My only question would be, how do you solve it? I'm not asking you to give the answer everyone's looking, but what do you do unless you're going to, and Rob Manfred, to his credit, was open that they are talking about changing some of the rules about how you can I don't want to. How you can exert
limit the number of shifts
or your analytical influence on the game, because as long as the data's out there, teams are going to say, "Hey, I'm hired to win a baseball game, and so I'm going to give my team the best chance to win the baseball game." So how do you fix it?
Well, I'm not saying the data isn't correct. I think sometimes the data exposes things, and it has exposed some things in the game that, as a player and as let's just call a team, an agent and a player, you got to determine. Is this good for your health? Is this good for your long term? Are you just trying to get one big payday? To me, when we grew up and played, we wanted to play 20 years. I was fortunate to play 22 years. I never maxed out anything I ever did. I was hurt a lot but I was going to the postseason 14 straight years in a row. Now we talk about going 2 years in a row and guys are exhausted and tired. So I know things have changed, and this is not old style meeting new style. This should be a combination of using information and the blending of the great athleticism. But when you start talking to an 8- and 9-year-old and they're talking about launch angle, we've gone too far. And when you start talking about their velocity at 9 and 10, we've gone too far, and it's trickled down too far. So analytically, you're not concerned, sabermetric-wise, you're not concerned about 10 years from now.
Right.
You're concerned about winning an extra game or two over the course of 162. That's your bottom line. So I'm not saying that it is all their fault. I just think if there's not a blend, you start pouring all of it in one bucket, you're going to start seeing the byproduct of injury rate like we've never seen before. And I think I haven't heard anybody really address that. Remember, all this philosophy was this is supposed to be better for you and better for the game. I haven't heard anybody really address or want to address the injury rate, because the generic kind of theory is more's coming. More players are coming. And that would bother me as a player if I felt like I was more at risk of just being replaced because more's coming. I got a dime a dozen guys that can throw 98. Are they developed? No. But they can throw 98. So you can piece them in, and you can utilize them and then just bring the next guy in.
Analyze some of the arms for us in the American League. Chris Sale is going to pitch tonight. Luis Severino, the two of them sort of in the hunt for the AL Cy Young Award. What do you think looking
Phenomenal.
forward?
Chris Sale's made so many adjustments. You're not talking about one of the most dynamic left-handed, fierce. You cannot figure out that angle that he throws a baseball. Now, most people would have said, no way can that sustain itself. He's very skinny. But see, he's kind of the perfect example of a young pitcher who figured out, yes, I can strike out 13 a game, but I'm not necessarily helping my team if I don't pitch deeper in the game. So he made a shift. 3 years ago, talking to him, said, I need to be better for my team, and that's what he's done. So hard to hit, strikes out the world, and he's been phenomenal. Severino's made amazing changes mechanically. I said 2 years ago he's going to win a Cy Young. This is probably his best chance, obviously.
Okay.
His stuff is fantastic. And for the New York Yankees, wow, could they use another one of him or 3/4 of him to give that high-powered offense and bullpen.
Is there someone out there, though?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Let's hear it.
I think it's time to break that unwritten rule on that you can't trade between the markets of New York Mets and New York Yankees.
Oh, you want DeGrom over there.
I think that's game changer. The New York Yankees need to go make a game changer. They're loaded in the farm system. It would take a lot, but it would be worth it. And it might even take a player from the likes that you can say is an untouchable that already won a World Series for the Chicago Cubs. And that is Torres. He's the name that everybody wants. He won a World Series for the Cubs. He would win a World Series for the Yankees, even if he didn't play for them. But it's hard to wrap your arms around why the Yankees have built something so quickly and why they could have a game-changer situation if they add a dynamic arm in their rotation, because now you're talking about a combination of the three-headed monster: bullpen, offense, and starting rotation.
John, we could talk to you all day.
Jacob DeGrom going to the Yankees would be bananas.
The Mets
be the greatest talk show topic that has ever happened, because he is so good and one of the best pitchers in the game, and yet the Mets, as talented as they are, have not found a way to stay healthy.
I mean, they got 39 wins.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Much appreciated.
See, I told you he was on my list. What'd I tell you? Most accomplished athlete, broadcaster.
Yeah, that is.
Him and Troy, hey, I'm telling you, 1 and 2. I drafted you. We had a discussion. I was killing the people.
We did.
Yes.
You were
Much more first things first right after the
analytics, arm angle, 8-year-old, launch angle. Get out of here with that mess.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Chris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolf. So long, everybody.